and you could only give me one thing, what's the one thing you'd give me? I would talk to you about your mindset. I really would. It's the greatest gap between successful and unsuccessful people is how they think. That's a fact. It has nothing to do with intelligence, has nothing to do with IQ. I'm not saying successful people are smarter than other people. I'm just saying successful people think differently. They have a different mindset. And my father was so committed. He was so committed to helping us think correctly. And he knew that he could really help that by creating the right kind of environment for the three of us as his children to think well. That literally, by the time I got ready to write my first book, that my first book was entitled Think on These Things. And I was so excited because I wanted to write a book to help people think right. And so that was written clear back in 1979, and I had 31 chapters, okay, 31 chapters. The book's still in print, by the way. Think on These Things, still in print, and it kind of amazes me that it's still in print. It was my first book, and it wasn't that good, because you're never good the first time. Are you okay? But it's okay. It's nothing wrong. You got to do it first time so you get to a second time. You with me? And no one ever went to a second time until they did the first one. So you got to get started. You got to get on that starting line. And so I had a lady come up to me with the book, because it's still in print recently, and she wanted me to sign it for me. I said, well, that's my first book I ever wrote. She said, oh, I know it. She said, I love this book. I just love this book. And I thought, oh, that's a little unusual. So I said, you love the book? She said, I love the book. I said, well, what do you love about it? Oh, she said, the short chapters. I love the short chapters. She said, oh, my gosh. She said, where did you ever think of, what made you think of writing short chapters? I said, lady, it was my first book. I had nothing else to say. And by the way, it's 31 chapters, and the book's only 100 pages. So it's like 3 pages a chapter. Are you with me? And some of those chapters were 2 pages too long. I literally, it took me a whole year. It took me a whole year to write the book. I remember one day I was in a hotel in Indiana, and I wrote all day long, and I only got about 3 paragraphs done the whole day. And so I tell you that story because when people look at me today, 32 million books sold and all the stuff that's happened, they look at me and say, "My gosh, John, you must be amazing." And I said, "No, there wasn't much amazing in the beginning. It was hard work." And it wasn't easy, and I didn't do it really well. One of my greatest regrets is that people see me now. I wish you could have seen me when I started. You would be so encouraged. Yeah, I'm just serious. You would, if you just saw me when I started, you would re-enter this race so quick. You'd just say, "Oh my gosh, there's hope for me." Because the problem is you're seeing me on the back end and you think I'm better than I really am. But on the front end, people thought I was worse than I really was. And that's the way this kind of works. But I'm here to tell you, as I look back at my journey, it was my mindset. It was how I thought. So if I could sit down at a table with you and give you the one thing I would give you is I would say, you've got to have the right type of thinking for you to get to where you want to go. And so let me just give you a couple thoughts on mindset. Number one is the right mindset creates a foundation for good results. As a person thinks within themselves, so they become. And good thoughts and actions usually produce good results. And it's true that all is well that begins well. And if you don't believe that all is well that begins well, we hear all the time, all is well that ends well. But I'm telling you, no, you got to start well. And that beginning is very essential. And if you don't think starting well, thinking right on the front end is essential, just talk to a coach before his team goes out to play the game. And ask him if mindset matters. Talk to the surgeon who's about to operate on a patient and ask him Do you think that the mindset of that patient matters as they go into that surgery? Ask a teacher who's about to give a test to the students. Ask that teacher, do you think that the mindset that they have going into taking that test, do you think that's where? Ask a mentor that's just getting ready to develop a person, how important do you think it is to have that mindset? And so it creates the right foundation for good things to happen in your life. So it begins in the morning. And I'm going to just tell you how it begins with me. In the morning, I wake up, and I wake up with what I call self-thought. And I have two main self-thoughts every morning when I awaken. I've trained my mind this way. The first thing when I wake up in the morning, my first